published over the weekend that in the Sunday Times, David Cameron and Annalena Baerbock jointly published this article. Now, that's entitled in the Sunday Times, David Cameron, Why the UK and Germany Back a Sustainable Ceasefire. This, of course, is with respect to Gaza. And they don't mention Annalena in the headline itself. That's because the German version of this was published in Welt am Sonntag. So they are looking for a sustainable ceasefire. So let's see what David Cameron's saying. We must do all we can to pave the way to a sustainable ceasefire leading to a sustainable peace. The sooner it comes, the better. The need is urgent, he said in the article. Our goal cannot simply be an end to the fighting today. It must be peace lasting for days, years, generations. We therefore support a ceasefire, but only if it's sustainable.
It's beautiful language, yes. Mike.
He said that Israel has a right to eliminate the threat posed by Hamas, but too many civilians have been killed. But we've got to make sure that those deaths are sustainable, and therefore there's a sustainable ceasefire, apparently.
Well, indeed. Wars are good because wars generate huge profit and, of course, keep the politicians effectively in business. But it's not going well in Ukraine. This is a double-page spread from the Sunday Telegraph, which I held up on screen a few moments ago. And this is the big headline. Of course, Zelensky's been put to the fore, and competitors, including his senior general, pushed to the back in this photo, but the headline says it all: why Ukraine must not turn its back on Zelensky. Well, the horrible reality is that the war is going very, very badly for Ukraine. But the article here says that shuttle diplomacy is the best chance to defeat Putin. So as Zelensky shuttles himself from one country to the other, begging more money to keep the war going, the harsh reality is that the war is lost for Ukraine. It is now only a matter of time. But of course, the West is desperate to keep up the illusion that the war is still going to run to Ukrainians' benefit. And haven't they done a good job? But what I wanted to really highlight, of course, is where the money comes from. I've taken the Kyiv Post headline here. The World Bank allocates over $1 billion to Ukraine, primarily from Japan. These funds will be directed to the payment of pensions, teachers' salaries, and support of internally displaced persons, allowing Ukraine to focus its internal resources on the needs of the military. What that is actually saying, of course, is that Ukraine as a nation state has collapsed. It can't afford to run its own systems, its own economy, its own pay systems. So that money is going to come in from the World Bank, and that will allow the Ukrainians to continue a war where their soldiers are being slaughtered. And let's follow this through a bit more. If you go and look at the World Bank, the headline here from December the 5th, 2023, World Bank Group financing support mobilization to Ukraine since February the 24th, 2022. So the World Bank very, very proud that it's actually been pumping in the money to keep the death and destruction going. And of course, one of the things that's happened is that millions and millions of Ukrainians have been displaced into Western Europe as migrants, with all of the problems that entails. But do have a look at the website. Let me just show you this embedded video clip. So I've made this one mobile, if you like, so that you can see all of the money coming in from different countries: the US, UK, Norway, Denmark, Lithuania, Iceland. In it comes millions and billions of pounds. It includes supposedly recovery, relief and reconstruction money. But here it is that the bankers are funding the wars to keep it going. And if we just add a little bit here, which I came across on the website, was a quote from the Vice President, Development Finance of the World Bank Group. And he had this to say: our world is facing unprecedented overlapping crises stemming from the COVID-19 pandemic, conflict and climate change. The pandemic has led to an increase in global poverty, disruptions in human capital accumulation and an erosion of the fiscal space in many developing countries. More than 2 years into the pandemic, these already stressed countries are now experiencing the global impact of the war in Ukraine. compounding crises have led to supply chain disruptions that further threaten food and nutrition security and access to energy, competitiveness and growth. All the while, climate change impacts continue to intensify, with natural disasters becoming more frequent and damaging to vulnerable countries. So what's he really saying? We at the World Bank are going to help this chaos keep going by pumping in the billions to keep the war in Ukraine, which of course is disrupting food production in Ukraine, but it's also creating the migrants and the follow-on effects in the countries to which they go. So always look at the bankers and where the money is coming from as far as wars are concerned. And here we've got more of the World Bank site, where effectively they're boasting of their ability to use civil society organizations to influence and control internal politics in countries around the world. So I'll just drop that over the top of that. The World Bank supposedly helping civil society, but what you've got is bankers and banking money driving the political agendas in nation states throughout the world to a common world geopolitical agenda.
Okay, let's have